Welcome to Timeless History. Let us quietly drift through the forgotten pages of history. And so, our quiet journey through the world of Greek mythology reaches its gentle conclusion. We have walked among gods and heroes, listened to whispers of ancient legends, and glimpsed the beliefs that shaped an entire civilization. The myths of ancient Greece remind us that though time passes, the great questions of life remain. Why are we here? What forces guide our destiny? What lies beyond the stars and beneath the earth? The Greeks answered with stories of Zeus and Hera, of Athena and Apollo, of monsters lurking in the shadows, and of heroes brave enough to face them. Through myth, they taught courage, warned against pride, celebrated love, and explored the mysteries of fate. They believed that the gods were never far, watching from the peaks of Mount Olympus or hidden among mortals in disguise. Their myths were woven into every temple, every festival, every quiet prayer spoken beneath olive trees and starry skies. And even now, their stories live on in our words, our art, our dreams, and the way we wonder about the unknown. The gods may have retreated beyond the clouds, but their lessons echo through time. The heroes may have faded into legend, but their courage still inspires. The monsters may be myths, yet they remind us to face our fears. Greek mythology belongs to all who seek to understand life, who long to explore the mysteries beyond sight, who believe that stories carry the power to shape our world. Thank you for walking with me through these ancient tales. This is only the beginning. In the next chapter, we will journey deeper into the world of Greek mythology, exploring new legends, forgotten gods, and the timeless adventures that still echo across the ages. The myths have never truly ended, for as long as there are those who wonder, those who dream, and those who tell stories, the legends of the ancient world live on. Even in our modern world of science and discovery, the echoes of Olympus remain. We speak their names in distant planets and constellations. We draw upon their tales in books, in movies, and in quiet moments when we ponder life's great mysteries. For mythology was never about the past alone. It is a living reflection of who we are and who we hope to become. The gods may be distant, the heroes long gone, but the lessons endure. Pride must be tempered with wisdom. Love must be cherished, fear must be faced, and even in darkness, hope remains. In every whispered legend, every quiet night beneath the stars, the myths remind us that life itself is an adventure, a journey across the unknown, guided by the stories of those who came before. So let us carry these ancient tales with us. The ancient Greeks knew that their world was fragile, shaped by forces beyond mortal understanding. Earthquakes split the land, storms battered the shores, and the sea swallowed ships whole. To explain these mysteries, they turned to myth. They told of titans imprisoned beneath the earth whose struggles caused the ground to shake. They spoke of Poseidon's anger churning the seas into violent waves, reminding mortals to show respect for the power of the ocean. They believed that Helios, the sun god, drove his fiery chariot across the sky, and that Artemis guided the moon through the night. Even sickness and misfortune were seen as the work of unseen forces, sent by displeased gods or vengeful spirits. But the myths also offered hope, a promise that through courage, sacrifice, and wisdom mortals could find favor with the divine. Heroes like Perseus, Theseus, and Heracles proved that even against impossible odds, victory was possible. They battled monsters, defied tyrants, and endured hardship, their deeds celebrated in song and story. The Greeks honored their heroes with temples, statues, and festivals, ensuring their legacy would never fade. And so, the myths lived on, carried across generations, shaping the beliefs, traditions, and imagination of an entire civilization. Today, we may no longer offer sacrifices to the gods of Olympus, but their names still echo in our language, their stories hidden in the words we speak, the art we admire, and the dreams we chase. The myths endure not because they belong to the past, but because they remind us of timeless truths, the power of bravery, the danger of pride, and the wonder of the unknown. They teach that, though we may be small in the face of fate, we are never without hope, never without the ability to rise, to learn, and to dream. The myths whispered that the gods, though mighty, could be moved by mortal deeds, by acts of kindness, by songs of worship, by courage in the face of darkness. In the temples of Delphi, oracles spoke in riddles, guiding kings and peasants alike, their words believed to carry the will of Apollo. Beneath the olive groves, offerings were left for Athena, her wisdom shaping the city of Athens. At sea, sailors prayed to Poseidon, tossing gifts into the waves, pleading for safe passage through the unknown. And in quiet moments, beneath the endless night sky, mortals wondered what lay beyond, the gods above, the underworld below, and the endless questions of existence. The ancient Greeks knew that, though they were small, their actions could echo across time, their names carried in song and memory. The myths remind us that even now we are part of a story much greater than ourselves, a tale woven with courage, love, loss, and the eternal search for truth. And as long as we remember these ancient tales, as long as we tell them anew, the legacy of Greek mythology will live on, guiding dreamers, warriors, and seekers across the ages. The legacy of Greek mythology stretches beyond temples, beyond poems, beyond time itself. It lives in the marble ruins scattered across Greece, in the names of planets, in the quiet tales shared between friends, and in the art, music, and stories of countless cultures. Though the ancient world has changed, the questions at the heart of myth remain. Who are we? Where do we come from? What forces shape our lives? The Greeks answered with stories of gods and monsters, of fate and free will, of love that defies the grave and pride that brings ruin. They understood that life is a fragile thread, spun by the fates, cut when destiny decides. But within that thread, there is room for bravery, for cleverness, for kindness. Heroes may fall, but their names echo through the ages. Cities may crumble, but their myths endure. The gods themselves, though powerful, are not perfect. Their flaws make them reflections of our own struggles, the need for love, the battle against fear, the temptation of pride, the longing for something greater. Greek mythology reminds us that even in an uncertain world, we have the power to shape our own story. Through courage, wisdom, and humility, mortals can rise, even when the odds seem impossible. The myths also teach patience, that sometimes the journey matters more than the destination. Odysseus sailed for years facing monsters and storms, yet every trial shaped the man who finally returned home. Like him, we are all travelers, navigating an unpredictable world, guided by the stories of those who came before us. And when we listen to those ancient tales, when we whisper the names of the gods, we keep the myths alive, not in dusty books, but in every choice, every hope, every dream. The story continues, as it always has, carried forward by those who believe in the power of legends. The Greeks believed that myth was not a relic of the past, it was a living, breathing guide to understanding the present. They turned to myth to explain the changing seasons, the tempests at sea, the spark of inspiration, and the moments when courage overcame fear. They believed that every mountain peak held secrets of the gods, that every wave carried the whispers of Poseidon, that every star marked the deeds of heroes immortalized in the sky. Through myth, they made sense of the unknown, the joys of love, the sting of loss, the call to adventure, and the price of pride. Generations passed, yet the myths never faded. They were carved into stone, sung by poets, etched onto pottery, and carried across oceans by travelers and traders. Today, those same stories endure. They speak to us from ancient ruins, from dusty scrolls, from the quiet pages of books, and from the depths of our imagination. They remind us that though the world changes, the human heart remains filled with questions, dreams, and the endless search for meaning. We are still guided by myths, whether we call them by ancient names or by the dreams we chase today. As the ancient Greeks gazed toward the endless horizon, they saw a world shaped by stories. To them, every whisper of the wind carried the voice of the gods. Every mountain peak, every crashing wave, every twinkling star held a legend waiting to be told. In their hearts, they believed that myths were more than history. They were the keys to understanding life, death, and everything between. The greatest cities of Greece, Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and beyond, each claimed their own myths, their own champions, their own divine patrons. Athena, born from the mind of Zeus, became the protector of Athens, her wisdom woven into its marble temples and olive groves. The Spartans honored Ares, god of war, their way of life built upon discipline, strength, and unbreakable resolve. Corinthians looked to Poseidon, master of the sea, their prosperity tied to trade and exploration. The myths united the people of Greece, reminding them that though divided by mountains and seas, they shared a history written by gods, heroes, and destiny. The myths also connected Greece to the wider world. Tales of distant lands, monstrous creatures, and impossible quests inspired generations to sail beyond the known horizon. It was through myth that the Greeks dreamed of the unknown, the lands of the Hyperboreans beyond the north wind, the depths of the underworld, the heights of Mount Olympus, hidden among the clouds. Each myth served as a compass, guiding mortals through triumph and tragedy, through pride and humility. And even now, when we speak of Greek mythology, we breathe life into stories more than 2,000 years old. The ancient tales still inspire, still challenge, still ignite the imagination. For as long as humanity dreams, the gods, heroes, and monsters of Greek mythology will endure, reminding us that though our world changes, our stories remain eternal. The myths live not only in temples and poems, but in the everyday moments of life. Farmers turned their eyes to the heavens, reading omens in the flight of birds. Mothers whispered the names of gods to their children, passing on tales of bravery and caution. Even the smallest village carried echoes of Olympus, For the stories of the gods belonged to all, regardless of wealth or power. The sea carried merchants and wanderers who spoke of distant myths, of forgotten islands where ancient creatures still roamed, of cities lost beneath the waves. Mountains were seen as resting places of titans, caves as entrances to the underworld, forests as realms of nymphs and spirits. To the ancient Greeks, the boundary between myth and reality was thin. Every shadow might hide a legend. The myths of ancient Greece remind us that even the greatest powers cannot escape fate. The Moirai, or Fates, spun, measured, and cut the thread of life for mortals and gods alike. Even Zeus, the mighty king of the gods, could not undo what destiny had woven. Yet, within the fabric of fate, the Greeks believed there was still room for choice, for courage, and for change. The stories of heroes reflect this eternal struggle. Though destined to face hardship, they fought for honor, for love, and for truth. Achilles, the mightiest warrior of the Trojan War, knew his life would be short, but his name would be remembered forever. Hector, noble prince of Troy, fought bravely to defend his home, though the walls of his city would fall. The gods watched, intervened, and argued among themselves, yet the bravery of mortals shaped history as much as divine power. Greek mythology teaches that greatness is not born of invincibility, but of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. The legends also offer warnings, the dangers of pride, the cost of the trail, and the unpredictable nature of divine favor. Yet for all their warnings, the myths celebrate beauty, love, music, and wisdom. Aphrodite embodied love and desire, inspiring both joy and heartbreak. Apollo guided the sun across the sky and inspired poets with visions of light and harmony. The ancient Greeks saw beauty in the stars, in the sea, and in the human spirit. Through mythology, they explored the heights of joy and the depths of sorrow. They believed that even in tragedy, meaning could be found, and that the stories of gods and mortals would echo through eternity. The myths endure because they belong to us all, woven into our dreams, whispered through time, and forever alive in the stories we tell. Even as centuries passed, the myths remained, growing with every generation, reshaped by poets, philosophers, and artists. The greatest thinkers of ancient Greece, like Plato and Aristotle, pondered the nature of the gods, blending reason with legend. Temples rose higher, their marble columns etched with images of divine triumphs and mortal struggles. The stories of Hercules, Perseus, and countless others were painted onto pottery, carved into stone, and passed from mouth to ear along the bustling markets of Athens. Festivals honored the gods with music, dance, and theatrical performances, where ancient dramas retold the tragedies and victories of myth. The myths explain not only the world outside, but the world within, the fears, hopes, dreams, and flaws that made mortals and immortals alike. Even today, when we gaze at the stars, we see the constellations named for heroes and monsters of old. The spirit of myth lingers in every tale of love, every test of courage, and every quiet. The myths of ancient Greece carried not only the voices of gods and heroes, but also the wisdom of generations who searched for meaning in the mysteries of life. They told of the birth of the cosmos, of love that defied death, of battles between gods and titans, and of mortals who dared to challenge fate. But even beyond these grand tales, the myths whispered smaller truths: the need for humility, the dangers of pride, the value of knowledge, and the importance of community. The ancient Greeks believed in balance, where every triumph carried responsibility, and every blessing could become a burden if misused. The story of Persephone and Demeter explained the cycle of the seasons. When Persephone was taken to the underworld by Hades, her mother Demeter, goddess of the harvest, mourned, and the earth grew barren. When Persephone returned, spring blossomed once more. This myth taught that life is a constant rhythm of loss and renewal, darkness and light. The myths also warned that destiny, though powerful, could be shaped by courage and wisdom. Heroes like Odysseus did not rely on strength alone, but on cleverness, patience, and resilience. They faced monsters, storms, and the wrath of gods, yet their determination carried them through. The gods, though mighty, often reflected human flaws. They quarreled, loved, envied, and made mistakes. This made them both awe-inspiring and relatable, showing that even the divine struggled with imperfection. Mythology was a mirror of life, where joy and sorrow, success and failure coexisted. From the highest peaks of Mount Olympus to the deepest shadows of the underworld, the myths explored every corner of existence. They explained the stars above, the lands below, and the mysteries that linger within the human heart. These ancient tales endure, not just as echoes of the past, but as living stories that guide, challenge, and inspire us to this day. Even in times of uncertainty, the Greeks looked to myth for answers. They believed that behind every shadow, every storm, every strange occurrence, there was a deeper meaning hidden by the gods. Mountains were more than stone. They were the remains of ancient battles. Rivers were more than water. They were the lifeblood of the earth, watched over by nymphs and spirits. The sea, vast and unpredictable, belonged to Poseidon, whose moods could lift or sink ships with a single wave. The stars, placed carefully in the night sky, told stories of heroes, of great beasts, and of the eternal watch of the gods. Mortals left offerings at temples, whispered prayers to statues, and asked oracles for guidance, hoping to glimpse the will of the divine. They knew that fate could be harsh, but also that through cleverness, bravery, and respect for the gods, they might shape their own destiny. And so the myths became part of every moment, carried in song, spoken around fires, etched onto pottery, and passed down through generations. The myths of ancient Greece not only explained the world, but offered a glimpse into the human soul. They spoke of longing, ambition, hope, and the constant struggle to overcome both mortal limits and divine obstacles. Among the most powerful symbols in mythology was the labyrinth, a twisting maze that trapped all who entered. At its heart lurked the Minotaur, a monstrous being, half man, half bull, feared by all. It was Theseus, a brave prince, who ventured into the labyrinth. Guided by a simple thread, he defeated the beast and found his way back to the light, proving that cleverness and courage can unravel even the darkest trials. This story, like so many others, reminded the Greeks that life's journey is complex, filled with uncertainty, yet no challenge is insurmountable for those who persevere. The legends also told of Daedalus, the master craftsman who built the labyrinth, and his son Icarus, who soared into the sky on wings of feather and wax. Icarus, ignoring his father's warnings, flew too close to the sun. His wings melted, and he fell into the sea, a symbol of youthful arrogance and the consequences of overreaching ambition. Greek mythology taught that balance was essential. Wisdom tempered bravery, humility softened pride, and reverence for the gods kept hubris in check. The Greeks believed the world was alive with omens and signs. Oracles spoke in riddles, dreams held hidden meanings, and the flight of birds could reveal the will of the gods. Temples to Apollo, Athena, and countless others dotted the landscape, each a sacred space where mortals sought guidance, forgiveness, or favor. Through song, dance, and poetry, myths were passed from one generation to the next, ensuring that no lesson, no warning, and no triumph was ever forgotten. The stories of the gods reflected the Greeks themselves, proud, curious, flawed, but always reaching for greatness. And so the myths endured, carved into stone, whispered beneath olive trees, and etched across the night sky. Even the distant corners of the ancient world carried echoes of myth. Sailors feared the edges of the map, believing the seas beyond were home to sea serpents and vengeful gods. Mountains were seen as the bones of ancient titans, rivers as the tears of wronged goddesses. Heroes braved unknown lands seeking treasure, glory, or redemption. Jason sailed aboard the Argo in search of the Golden Fleece, facing treacherous waters and monstrous guardians. Hercules, son of Zeus, faced trials that tested his strength and spirit, proving that even those born of gods must struggle to earn their place in legend. The Greeks believed the world was full of hidden forces, spirits in the forests, nymphs by the springs, and unseen gods watching from the heavens. Offerings were left at shrines along quiet roads, prayers whispered to statues worn smooth by time. Myth was not simply a tale from the past, it was a living presence in every stone, every wave, every heartbeat. The myths of ancient Greece did not only dwell on the grandeur of gods or the courage of heroes, they also spoke of ordinary people, of daily life, and of the eternal questions that have always echoed through the human heart. In small villages, farmers toiled beneath the Mediterranean sun, sowing grain and tending olive groves, believing that Demeter blessed their harvests. Fishermen cast their nets into the Aegean Sea, praying to Poseidon for calm waters and bountiful catches. Artisans carved marble, shaped pottery, and painted vibrant images of myth onto vases, ensuring that even the humblest homes carried echoes of the gods. Children learned the tales of Heracles, of Perseus, of the Trojan War as easily as they learned their prayers. These stories were not distant fantasies, but part of the fabric of life. They taught lessons of humility, of caution, of respecting the divine forces that ruled both nature and destiny. The gods were everywhere, in the storms that lashed the coasts, the lightning that split the skies, and the shadows that lingered in sacred groves. Festivals were held to honor them, filled with music, feasting, and competition. Temples rose atop hills, standing as symbols of faith and reminders of the unseen powers watching from above. But Greek mythology also warned of the dangers of arrogance. Mortals who defied the gods, who succumbed to pride or foolish ambition, met tragic ends. King Midas, who wished that all he touched turned to gold, learned that unchecked greed brings misery. Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection, became a cautionary tale of vanity. The myths preserved the understanding that while mortals could achieve greatness, they must never forget their place in the world. And so the legacy of these ancient stories continued, carried by poets, carved into stone, painted onto temple walls, and passed down through the generations. Even the greatest kings and warriors were subject to the will of the gods. In the myths, mighty cities rose and fell at the whims of divine forces. Troy, once thought invincible, crumbled under the siege foretold by prophecy and driven by mortal pride. The gods, though powerful, were not always just. They played with the fate of mortals, favoring some, cursing others, reminding humanity that life was unpredictable, ruled by forces beyond their understanding. In Athens, citizens honored Athena, goddess of wisdom, with grand festivals and sacrifices. They believed that through devotion, their city would prosper, their armies prevail, and their children flourish. The myths taught that courage was not the absence of fear, but the strength to face it, that true heroism was not measured by brute strength alone, but by wit, loyalty, and the willingness to challenge fate. These ancient myths continue to captivate our imaginations to this day. The stories of gods, heroes, monsters, and mortals reveal timeless truths about the human experience. We see ourselves in their courage, their struggles, their triumphs, and even their flaws. The myths remind us that even the greatest gods were imperfect, that fate is unpredictable, and that love, pride, and ambition shape the world as much as divine power. Through myth, the ancient Greeks passed down their wisdom, hopes, and fears, preserving them in temples, poems, and tales whispered by firelight. Even now, we retell these stories in books, in films, and in quiet moments of reflection. Greek mythology influenced every corner of Western culture, from language and literature to art, philosophy, and science. Echoes of these ancient legends still shape our world. The names of planets, stars, and constellations carry the legacy of the gods. Terms like Achilles' heel, Pandora's box, and Herculean effort remind us how deeply these myths are woven into everyday life. Artists across centuries have painted the gods, sculpted heroes, and written new stories inspired by ancient tales. In architecture, philosophy, politics, and beyond, the spirit of ancient Greece continues to thrive. The myths teach that courage, wisdom, and resilience are timeless virtues. They show that even gods make mistakes, that fate can be challenged, and that the greatest strength lies not in power, but in understanding ourselves. And so we return again and again to these stories, finding new meaning, new questions, and new inspiration. The ancient world may be gone, but its myths endure, whispering through time, reminding us that legends never truly fade. This is only the beginning. In our next journey, we will dive deeper into the legends of Greek mythology, exploring the rise of mighty heroes, the adventures of gods, and the mysteries that still echo across the ancient world. Throughout history, every civilization has looked to the stars and wondered about its origins. Yet few cultures have left behind such a rich, enduring legacy of myth as ancient Greece. The gods, with all their flaws and power, reflect the complexity of human nature. Their stories remind us that love can inspire and destroy, that pride can lift us or ruin us, and that even immortals face consequences. The heroes, bold yet imperfect, mirror our own struggles with destiny, fear, and hope. And the monsters lurking in forgotten corners of the world symbolize the unknown, the darkness, and the challenges that await those brave enough to face them. Even today, writers, filmmakers, and dreamers return to Greek mythology for inspiration. These ancient tales continue to evolve, reminding us that the search for meaning, the longing for adventure. Greek mythology was not merely about gods and monsters. It was a reflection of human nature, a way to explain the joys, fears, and struggles of life. Love and tragedy filled many myths. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice told of devotion so deep that Orpheus descended into the underworld to rescue his beloved, only to lose her again due to a moment of doubt. There were tales of pride and downfall, like Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, on wings of wax, ignoring warnings only to fall from the sky. Hubris, the excessive pride that angers the gods, was a constant theme. Mortals who claimed to be greater than the gods were swiftly punished, serving as a warning to others. The myths were also rich with tales of exploration and discovery. Jason and the Argonauts sailed in search of the Golden Fleece, facing perils on land and sea. Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, endured a long, perilous journey home after the Trojan War, battling creatures like the Cyclops, sirens, and the vengeful wrath of Poseidon himself. These stories were more than entertainment. They were lessons, history, and spiritual guidance for the ancient Greeks. Even festivals and city traditions were linked to myth. The Olympic Games, held in honor of Zeus, celebrated strength, skill, and divine favor. Temples stood as testaments to devotion. The Parthenon for Athena, the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, where oracles whispered prophecies from the gods. Greek mythology also offered glimpses into the afterlife. The souls of the departed journeyed to Hades' realm, crossing the river Styx with the help of the ferryman Charon. Some souls found peace in the Elysian fields, a paradise of eternal rest, while others faced punishment in the dark depths of Tartarus. Through myth, the Greeks sought to understand life's greatest mysteries: creation, fate, love, death, and the divine. The legends spoke of the Moirai, or Fates, three ancient sisters who controlled the thread of life. Clotho spun the thread, Lachesis measured it, and Atropos cut it, deciding when a mortal's life would end. Even the gods respected the power of the Fates, for destiny was seen as unchangeable, woven into the very fabric of existence. These ancient stories were more than folklore. They shaped how the Greeks saw their place in the world, their duties, and their hopes for the afterlife. Greek mythology also explained natural wonders and terrifying phenomena. When volcanoes erupted, people believed it was the work of Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, laboring beneath the mountains. The crashing thunder was the voice of Zeus, reminding mortals of his power. The ancient Greeks believed their gods were not distant beings, hidden beyond reach. Instead, the gods often walked among mortals, disguising themselves or appearing in their true, awe-inspiring forms. These encounters were woven into countless myths. The gods tested mortals, punished arrogance, rewarded bravery, and sometimes fell in love with humans, giving rise to demigods, heroes born of divine and mortal blood. The greatest of these heroes was Heracles, known for his incredible strength and the 12 labors he endured to earn redemption. Another famed hero, Perseus, defeated the monstrous Medusa, whose gaze could turn men to stone. In these myths, monsters lurked beyond the borders of the known world. Ferocious beasts like the Hydra, the Chimera, and the Minotaur haunted dark forests, deep seas, and forgotten labyrinths. Each myth taught lessons of virtue, caution, and the fragile nature of life. They reminded mortals to respect the gods, honor tradition, and face challenges with courage. But mythology was more than just entertainment. It explained the inexplicable, the changing seasons, the origins of the stars, the fierce storms that battered ships at sea. It provided a moral code, wrapped in wonder and imagination. As generations passed, these ancient stories became the heart of Greek identity. They shaped rituals, inspired art, and echoed through the marble temples that still stand today. Even now, when we speak of mighty Zeus or wise Athena, we breathe life into myths as old as time itself. The myths also revealed the flaws of gods and mortals alike. Even the most powerful beings were prone to jealousy, anger, and mistakes. Prometheus, the Titan, defied Zeus by giving fire to humanity. For his defiance, he was chained to a rock, his liver devoured daily by an eagle. The tale of Pandora warned of curiosity and consequence. Given a mysterious jar, Pandora opened it, releasing suffering into the world, leaving only hope behind. Greek mythology explained not only the natural world, but human nature itself, our hopes, our flaws, and our endless search for meaning. These timeless stories continue to echo through history, shaping the way we understand the world around us. The myths were not confined to distant lands or heroic battles. They touched every aspect of daily life in ancient Greece. Farmers prayed to Demeter for fertile fields and good harvests. Sailors offered tributes to Poseidon before embarking on dangerous sea voyages. Warriors asked for Ares' favor in battle, while artists and poets sought inspiration from the muses. The gods were ever present, their influence felt in the winds, the storms, the changing of the seasons, and the fortunes of men. Even festivals and city traditions were deeply tied to myth. The great Olympic Games honored Zeus, celebrating strength and divine favor. Temples stood as testaments to devotion. The Parthenon for Athena, the Oracle of Delphi for Apollo. In the beginning, before the gods, there was only chaos, a vast, dark nothingness. From this emptiness came the first beings, Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. Together they brought forth life, mountains, seas, and the stars. The ancient Greeks believed the world was shaped by powerful forces beyond human understanding. From the unions of primordial beings, the mighty Titans were born, giants who ruled before the age of the Olympian gods. The most famous of these Titans was Cronus, who overthrew his own father, Uranus, to become king. But Cronus feared his children would do the same, so he swallowed them at birth. Yet fate cannot be denied. His wife, Rhea, hid their youngest child, Zeus, who grew strong and returned to challenge his father. Zeus freed his siblings from Cronus's belly and led a great war, the Titanomachy, that ended the rule of the Titans. The victorious Olympian gods claimed Mount Olympus as their home, towering high above the clouds. From there, they watched over the world, guided its destiny, and became the central figures in countless myths told for centuries. These stories carried lessons of courage, pride, love, and fate. They shaped how ancient Greeks understood life, death, and the mysteries beyond. The gods of Olympus were many. There was mighty Zeus, king of the gods, ruler of the sky and bringer of storms. Beside him stood Hera, his wife, goddess of marriage and protector of families. Poseidon ruled the vast seas, commanding the waves and stirring tempests with his trident. Hades watched over the underworld, where departed souls found their eternal rest. Athena, born from the mind of Zeus himself, was the goddess of wisdom and war. Her symbols were the owl and the olive tree. She guided heroes with her cleverness and strength. Apollo, the god of light, music, and prophecy, brought inspiration to poets and guided the sun across the sky. His twin sister, Artemis, roamed the forests as the goddess of the hunt, protector of wildlife and young women. The gods were powerful, but also full of desires, rivalries, and flaws. They loved, they quarreled, they shaped the destiny of mortals with both kindness and wrath. Mortals, in turn, built temples to honor them, offered sacrifices, and told stories to explain the mysteries of the world. The myths of the gods spread from village to village, carried on the lips of storytellers, etched onto stone, painted upon vases, and sung in epic poems. And so, Greek mythology lived on through the centuries. Greek mythology, the world of gods, heroes, and legends. Let us begin our quiet journey into the world of Greek mythology. Imagine a time long ago, a time when the land was wild, the seas endless, and the sky filled with mystery. A time when people looked up to the stars and wondered, who created this world? Who controls the storms, the waves, the fire, and the earth itself? The answer, for the ancient Greeks, lay in their myths. Greek mythology is not just a collection of stories, it is a window into the beliefs, fears, and dreams of an ancient civilization. These myths speak of mighty gods and goddesses who live upon Mount Olympus. They tell of heroes who face impossible trials, of monsters that lurk in the shadows, of love, betrayal, and destiny. But these are not just tales for entertainment. For the people of ancient Greece, these myths were a way to understand the world. The rising sun, the crashing waves, the change of seasons, all were explained through the actions of the gods. The Greeks believed their gods looked like humans, but were far more powerful. They had emotions: love, jealousy, anger, pride. They argued, they fell in love, they made mistakes. But they could command the elements, shape fate, and punish those who defied them. At the top of their divine world was Zeus, the king of the gods. With his thunderbolt, he ruled the skies. His brothers Poseidon and Hades ruled the seas and the underworld. Hera, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, each had their domain, their symbols, their legends. The stories of these gods were passed down from generation to generation, sung by poets, painted on pottery, carved into stone. They filled the temples, the markets, the homes. They whispered through the olive groves and echoed across the hills. Greek mythology shaped the identity of an entire civilization, and even today, those ancient stories continue to inspire us. Let us now explore the beginnings of these timeless myths. In the beginning, before the gods, there was only chaos, a vast, dark nothingness. From this emptiness came the first beings, Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. Together, they brought forth life, mountains, seas, and the stars. The ancient Greeks believed the world was shaped by powerful forces beyond human understanding. From the unions of primordial beings, the mighty Titans were born, giants who ruled before the age of the Olympian gods. The most famous of these Titans was Cronus, who overthrew his own father Uranus to become king. But Cronus feared his children would do the same. so he swallowed them at birth. Yet fate cannot be denied. His wife Rhea hid their youngest child, Zeus, who grew strong and returned to challenge.